I never thought my life would change with one little lottery ticket. I was just living my normal days, driving buses in Atlanta, counting every dollar, and trying to keep my head above water. But then I hit the jackpot, $21 million. People think that kind of money means happiness, but let me tell you something. It also brings out the worst in the people closest to you. My name is Monica Harris. I'm 48, a single mom, and I've been hustling my whole life. I've got 2 kids, Kiana, my oldest at 23, and Darnell, my baby boy, 19. Their father, Tyrone, still drifts in and out like a stray cat. We've been separated for years, but he shows up whenever he smells a free meal or thinks he can get something out of me. And then there's my little sister, Shanice. She's 42, always has something slick to say, always watching me like she's measuring herself against me. If I buy a new coat, she's got to have one a little shinier. If I get a raise, she brags about some deal she almost made. That's just Shanice. When the lottery win came, at first I thought this was finally my chance. No more stress about rent, no more double shifts. I started picturing the good things, buying a real house, paying for Darnell's college without loans, maybe even traveling for the first time in my life. I wasn't thinking about danger. I wasn't thinking that money could turn love into poison. But the thing about family is they know you better than anyone. They know your weak spots, your habits, your health problems. And if they ever turn against you, it cuts deep. I learned that the hard way. One night, not long after I'd claimed my winnings, I was walking through the house half asleep, just looking for a glass of water. As I passed the kitchen, I froze. I heard a voice, my daughter's voice. Kiana was on the phone, her back to me, speaking low but clear. And what she said chilled me to the bone. "Increase the dose," she whispered. "By Christmas, she won't even know herself." I stood there in the dark, holding my breath so she wouldn't know I was listening. My heart thumped so hard I thought it might give me away. She laughed softly, like she was sharing a secret with someone on the other end of the line. I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. That moment changed everything for me. I realized that all the money I thought would make life better was pulling out the greed, the jealousy, the hunger I never wanted to see in my own child. And as much as it hurt, I had to face the truth. Someone in my own family wanted me weak, confused, maybe even gone. I bought the ticket the same way I sometimes pick up gum or a soda, without thinking. It was just a habit. I scratched it at the kitchen table a few days later, half distracted, and almost dropped the card when I saw the numbers. 21 million. I stared at it so long my eyes watered. I called the hotline twice just to make sure I wasn't seeing things wrong. When they confirmed it, my knees went weak. For a moment, I just sat there in silence, holding that ticket like it might catch fire if I breathed too hard. The first thing I pictured was a house. Not fancy, just one where the walls weren't thin and I didn't have to hear neighbors arguing through the vents. Then I thought about Darnell. College had always been the dream, but tuition bills felt like a mountain I could never climb. Now I could see him walking across a stage in his cap and gown without a single debt hanging over him. I even let myself think about traveling, maybe a beach, maybe somewhere far where I didn't know a soul. But the dream didn't stay quiet for long. Word spread fast, even though I tried to keep it small. My phone lit up with calls from people I hadn't heard from in years. And the people close to me, the ones who should have been happy, started acting different. Kiana was the first. She came around more, smiling big, offering to cook or clean. She hugged me longer than usual, called me mommy like she used to when she was little. But behind the sweetness, her eyes kept sliding to my purse, to the drawer where I tucked important papers. She asked questions like, "So, how much is it after taxes?" And, "Are you putting it all in one account?" Her voice was light, but her hands fidgeted whenever she asked. Then Tyrone showed up at my door one afternoon with a folder tucked under his arm. He started talking about smart investments and turning millions into billions. He laid out brochures for real estate, restaurants, even a trucking company. I sat there listening, wondering when he'd last asked about his kids, when he'd last paid a bill in this house. He acted like the money was his to manage, like I was just holding it for him until he made the right moves. And Shanice, my sister, she was slick about it. She'd drop by with a smile, acting like she just wanted to check in. But every conversation circled back to money. "You know, blessings are meant to be shared," she'd say while sipping her sweet tea. Or, "You wouldn't even notice a couple $100,000 missing." She tried to laugh it off, but her eyes were sharp, waiting for my reaction. The more they talked, the more I felt something tightening around me. It wasn't outright fights, not yet. It was the way voices dropped when I walked into a room, the way glances were exchanged across the table. I could feel the weight of unspoken things pressing in, like everyone was waiting for me to slip. It was late, the kind of quiet where even the refrigerator hum feels loud. I got up because my throat was dry. The hallway was dim, the house heavy with sleep. I pushed the door open slowly, thinking only of water. Then I stopped. A soft light glowed under the kitchen door. I heard the low murmur of a voice, almost too faint to catch. I took a careful step closer, my bare feet silent on the floor. Then the words came clear, cutting through the air like glass. Increase the dose. By Christmas, she won't even know herself. It was Kiana. My Kiana. My chest tightened, and for a second I thought I might collapse right there. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. Her tone wasn't nervous or unsure. It was steady, calm, like she was discussing grocery lists or a shift schedule. I couldn't hear the person on the other end, but her quiet laugh followed, soft and cruel. My body went cold. My first thought was that I must be imagining it, that maybe I was half asleep, mixing dreams with reality. But the sound of her voice was too sharp, too real. Every syllable sank into me. I didn't push the door open. I didn't rush in to demand answers. I stayed still, heart hammering in my throat, fighting the urge to scream. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, was plotting something. Against me. I felt it in my bones. When I finally backed away, it was slow, careful. I moved like a shadow, not daring to let the floorboards creak. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark. My mind spun, trying to piece together what she meant. Increase the dose. Dose of what? My pills? My medicine was always in the cabinet. Had she touched them? My stomach twisted. I wanted to storm in and grab the phone out of her hand. I wanted to shout, to demand she explain herself. But another part of me whispered, wait. If she was bold enough to speak like that, then it wasn't her first time. If she was planning something, I needed to see it for myself. So when morning came, I acted like nothing had happened. I smiled at her, asked about her day, even let her make me coffee. She moved around the kitchen like always, but every glance, every small movement seemed different to me now. I caught myself staring at her hands as she stirred sugar into my cup, wondering what else those hands had been doing behind my back. Inside, I was screaming, but on the outside, I stayed calm. I laughed at her jokes, nodded at her stories, and pretended nothing had changed. But everything had. Every word she spoke felt double-sided now, like there was a secret hiding underneath. I began to watch quietly, eyes sharper than before. I paid attention to where she went, how long she stayed out, who she talked to on her phone. I checked my medicine bottles when she wasn't looking, memorizing the number of pills inside. Each day, I played the role of the trusting mother, but underneath, I was on guard, waiting for proof. The house no longer felt safe. Each sound at night made me sit up in bed, listening for footsteps, listening for her. I didn't sleep much. I couldn't. The words wouldn't leave me. By Christmas, she won't even know herself. And now I knew, the countdown had already started. I kept a careful eye on my things. The kitchen cabinet was small, only a few shelves, and my bottles were always lined up neatly. One evening, I opened the door and something felt wrong. The labels weren't facing the way I usually left them, and one cap was twisted just a little loose. Nobody else in the house should have been touching them. My fingers hovered over the bottles, tracing the edges, my stomach nodding. Later that week, Shanice came over. She walked in like she owned the place, carrying a bag of takeout and talking loud enough for the neighbors to hear. While we were sitting in the living room, she spotted my medicine on the table. She picked one up, shook it in her hand, and smirked. You know, sis, she said, tilting her head, you trust me way too much. I could swap these out, and you wouldn't even notice. She laughed, tossing the bottle from hand to hand like it was a toy. My mouth went dry. I forced a chuckle, trying not to show the fear crawling up my neck. Don't be silly, I said, reaching to take it back. But inside, my heart was thumping hard. Her grin lingered just a little too long, and there was something in her eyes that told me it wasn't just a joke. The rest of the night, she carried on as if nothing had happened. She ate her food, scrolled through her phone, and gossiped about neighbors. But I couldn't shake off the image of that pill bottle in her hand, or the way her words slid out so casually. It didn't sound like a prank. It sounded like a warning. I didn't sleep much after she left. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. My own daughter whispering in the dark. Now my sister making jokes about switching pills. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. The next day, I decided to talk to my parents. If anyone could make sense of this, I thought it would be them. I sat at their kitchen table, sipping coffee that tasted bitter even with sugar. My mother folded laundry while I explained what happened, and my father sat with his arms crossed, quiet until I finished. "Shanice said what?" my mother asked, raising her eyebrows. "She held my medicine," I said slowly, "and told me she could swap them." She was laughing, but it didn't feel like a joke. For a moment, there was silence. Then my father shook his head. "That's your sister, Monica. Don't start accusing her of things. Family's all we've got. She wouldn't hurt you," my mother added firmly. "You're reading too much into it. Sometimes people say things they don't mean." I stared at them, searching for a trace of doubt in their faces. There was none. Their eyes told me they weren't going to believe me, no matter what I said. To them, Shanice was still the younger daughter who could do no wrong. I left their house with a heavy chest. The streets blurred as I drove home, my grip tight on the wheel. I realized then I was alone in this. Nobody was going to see what I saw. Nobody was going to protect me. I would have to do that myself. I couldn't sit still anymore. Every glance at those bottles made my skin crawl. I needed to know the truth, and I needed a plan that would leave no doubt. One afternoon, I drove to a small hardware shop across town where no one knew me. I bought a metal lockbox, one with a key only I could carry. When I got home, I carefully placed my real medicine inside and slid the box under my bed. In the cabinet, I left a different set. I refilled the old containers with decoys, pills I didn't need, the kind anyone could buy over the counter. From the outside, they looked the same. But I knew every difference, down to the exact shade of the tablets. I told myself that if anyone tampered with them, I'd know. A week passed. I acted calm, never letting on that I was watching. Then one evening, I opened the cabinet and my breath caught. The bottles were sitting in the right spot, but something wasn't right. The pills weren't the same shade anymore. I poured a few into my hand. The shape was off, the coating slightly different. When I touched one to my tongue, the taste burned bitter, nothing like what I'd ever been prescribed. I set the bottle down with trembling fingers. This was it. Proof. My chest felt heavy, but I didn't cry. I placed a few pills in a sealed bag and drove them to a small lab I found online that tested medication for private clients. I told them I wanted a full breakdown. They didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any. Those days waiting for the results dragged on. I kept up my mask, smiling at Kiana when she came in late, laughing lightly when Shanice stopped by unannounced. Inside, every muscle in my body was wound tight, waiting for the envelope that would either calm me or destroy me. When the results finally arrived, I sat at my table and opened the packet slowly, my hands stiff. The report was clear. The dosage inside the pills was 3 times higher than what had been prescribed to me. 3 times. Enough to fog my brain, weaken my body, maybe even stop my heart if I wasn't careful. I sat there staring at the paper, the room spinning around me. It was no longer a suspicion, no longer a guess. Someone close to me had switched those pills, and they had done it on purpose. They weren't trying to help me. They weren't making a mistake. They were setting me up to lose myself, to fade away piece by piece until I couldn't fight back. I folded the report and placed it in my drawer. The house felt different now, colder, as though the walls themselves had turned against me. My daughter, my sister, the 2 people who should have stood at my side. Instead, they were planning my downfall. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. It happened on a night when I was too tired to think straight. I had been up late folding laundry, my mind running circles, and when I reached for my medicine, I didn't check the label. I swallowed 2 pills, the same way I'd done for years, and went to bed. Not long after, a strange heaviness spread through my chest. My vision blurred, and the room spun. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out. The floor rushed up, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was staring at bright hospital lights. My mouth was dry, my throat burning, and machines beeped steadily beside me. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw Shanice sitting by the bed, holding my hand, her face twisted in a performance of concern. "Oh, Monica," she said, her voice trembling. "You scared us half to death." I was so worried. Her grip felt wrong, too tight, like she was making sure I couldn't pull away. Before I could answer, Kiana appeared at the doorway. Her eyes were red, her cheeks streaked with tears. She ran over, clutching my arm. "Mom, I thought I lost you," she cried, her voice breaking. Anyone else might have believed her, but I noticed how quickly she glanced at the 4 bag, then back at me. Tyrone strolled in a little later, arms crossed, his tone casual. Probably just a mix-up at the pharmacy, he said, shrugging. Happens all the time. No need to stress. I looked at each of them, my pulse pounding louder than the machine's. I wanted to scream that it wasn't an accident, that I knew exactly what was happening. But their faces told me the truth. If I said it out loud, they'd only deny it. They would smile, nod, maybe call me paranoid. They were already preparing their lines. The doctor came in, explained that I had taken too strong a dose, but didn't push for details. He seemed satisfied with Tyrone's easy answer, and I could see Shanice relax as if the story had already been written for me. Careless mistake, nothing more. I forced myself to stay quiet, letting them believe I was too weak to argue. Inside, though, I was burning. They wanted me confused, doubting my own senses, second-guessing every step. I could feel the trap closing in. When Shanice leaned closer and whispered, "You've got to be more careful, sis." Her words brushed my ear like poison. Kiana dabbed at her face with tissues, but her eyes avoided mine. Tyrone tapped his foot impatiently, already bored. Lying there, I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit before. They were united in their silence, bound together by greed. And me? I was alone, fighting for my life in plain sight, while the people around me acted like loving family. As the night dragged on, I kept my eyes half closed, pretending to rest. I listened to their voices, their whispers, the false comfort dripping from their mouths. And deep inside, I knew I couldn't rely on anyone in that room. I couldn't carry the weight of silence anymore. Every look, every whisper behind my back had stacked up until it felt like I was choking. So I called them all together. I told them to come to the house, no excuses. When everyone sat down at the dining table, I didn't waste time. I pulled out the envelope from the drawer and dropped it in front of them. The papers slid across the wood with a sharp sound. "Read it," I said, my voice low but steady. Kiana was the first to snatch it up. Her eyes moved over the words, but her face didn't change. She tossed the papers back, her jaw tight. "This doesn't mean anything," she said quickly. "You're blowing things out of proportion." I leaned forward. "Those aren't just numbers. That's poison. Someone changed my pills, and it wasn't the pharmacy. I know it. And you know it." Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment, she tried to keep her calm. But then her voice cracked into a shout. "You're sitting on money you don't even know how to use. You don't deserve it while we're out here struggling." The room fell silent. Even she looked shocked at the words that slipped out, but it was too late. Shanice tried to jump in, waving her hands like she could smooth everything over. "Kiana didn't mean that. She's just upset." Then she turned to me with a forced laugh. "Besides, you can't even prove who touched those pills. I mean, unless you think it's funny that the dosage—" She froze, her eyes widening. I caught it. Every person in the room caught it. She realized she'd said too much. "What dosage?" I asked slowly. She stammered, fumbling with her words. I just meant, the doctor probably got it wrong. It happens." Her laugh was shaky, her hands twisting together. My parents sat stiff in their chairs, their faces pale. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice sharp. "Monica, stop this. You're tearing the family apart. These are your people. Blood is blood. Don't throw us away over money." My father nodded, his tone heavy. "Forgive them. Whatever mistakes they made, they didn't mean harm. You'll regret cutting ties. Family is all we've got." I stared at them, searching for even a flicker of support, but their eyes told me they had already chosen sides. To them, I was the problem for speaking the truth, not the victim of betrayal. The air in the room grew thick. Kiana sat back with her arms crossed, glaring at the floor. Shanice fiddled with her phone, avoiding my stare. My parents looked at me with disappointment, as if I were a stranger at their table. I wanted to scream, to shake them until they saw what I saw. But the fight left me. Their words, their actions had already drawn the line. I gathered the papers, folded them carefully, and tucked them away again. "I hear you," I said quietly. Loud and clear. After that meeting, I decided to stop wasting breath. No more shouting, no more pleading for anyone to see the truth. They wanted me quiet, confused, easy to handle. Instead, I would give them something they never expected: silence. I smiled at them. I laughed when Shanice cracked her little jokes. I hugged Kiana when she came home late. I nodded at my parents when they reminded me not to hold grudges. To them, it looked like I had given up the fight. But in my mind, I was moving pieces they couldn't see. The first thing I did was visit a lawyer. His office was small, tucked between a bakery and a barber shop. I told him everything without using names. I didn't need him to understand the family mess. I just needed him to protect me. He listened carefully, asked the right questions, and then slid papers across his desk. With every signature, I felt a layer of fear peel off. I changed my will, cutting out the ones who circled me like vultures. No more promises, no more assumptions. The money would go exactly where I wanted it, not where they thought they could grab it. Next, I moved a large sum into a trust. Darnell was the only one with access, but not until he reached a certain age. I knew my boy had a good heart, but I also knew the pressure around him would grow once people found out. By locking it away, I gave him a shield. I also added layers of protection to my accounts. New passwords, new signatures, fresh instructions the bank would follow only with my approval. I was no longer careless, no longer trusting someone else to watch over my fortune. Every detail was tied tight. At home, though, I didn't let a single crack show. I still cooked Sunday dinners, still sat at the table with everyone, still asked about their days. If anything, I seemed warmer than before. I gave compliments, I listened, I offered help when they asked. I let them believe they had fooled me, that I had swallowed their act whole. Kiana leaned on me, testing if I would share more about my accounts. I gave her soft answers that meant nothing. Shanice dropped hints about investments, but I nodded like I wasn't paying attention. Their eyes sparkled each time they thought I was drifting back into trust. Inside, I kept my real plan close to the chest. My documents were hidden, my lawyer ready, my accounts locked. I slept easier knowing I was steps ahead, though I never let it show on my face. Every smile I gave them was calculated. Every thank you was a mask. They thought they were clever, but the truth was simple. I had stopped playing defense. Quietly, without a single warning, I had shifted to offense. And they didn't suspect a thing. Christmas came, and I remembered every word I had overheard in the kitchen weeks earlier. The day they had circled on their private calendar was finally here. I set the table, cooked the meal, and smiled as though nothing weighed on me. They laughed, they ate, they drank. To them, it looked like I was relaxed, enjoying the holiday. But inside, I was waiting for the right moment. After dinner, I excused myself and went to the cabinet. I picked up the tampered bottle, shook a few pills into my hand, and carried them back. With everyone watching, I placed them on my tongue, tilted my head, and pretended to swallow. I could feel their eyes on me. I set the glass of water down, coughed lightly, then smiled. All good, I said. The tension in the room eased for a brief second. They thought I had fallen into their trap again. That was when I pulled out a folder I had hidden under the sideboard. I laid it flat in the center of the table. The laughter stopped. These, I said, opening the folder, are the lab results. Triple dosage. Not from the pharmacy, done right here at home. My voice was calm, but the silence in the room was loud. Kiana froze, her fork slipping from her hand. Mom, this doesn't mean, she started, but her voice cracked. Then the mask broke. She slammed her hands against the table. Fine. You're sitting on money you'll never use. We're drowning while you sit here guarding it like some treasure chest. Shanice jumped in quickly, her words stumbling over each other. Don't listen to her, Monica. She doesn't mean it. You're confused, tired. Pills get mixed up all the time. You're imagining things. But her hands shook, and when I pulled out a small recorder and pressed play, her own voice filled the room. Careless words she had let slip one night about changing dosages. Her face drained of color. That was a joke, she whispered, but nobody believed her anymore. I pushed the final envelope forward. This is my new will. You're not in it. My lawyer already has the signed copy. Try whatever you want. It won't change a thing. Kiana's chair scraped back hard against the floor. She grabbed her coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Shanice's voice rose, sharp and furious. You're the traitor, Monica. Money has poisoned you. You're tearing this family apart. She screamed until her throat went raw, but I sat still, my hands folded, my eyes steady. Tyrone, who had stayed quiet through most of it, finally leaned back and shook his head. Damn, he muttered, staring at Shanice. She's right. You really were trying to take her down. For once, he wasn't defending anyone but me. My parents stood, their faces hard. My mother's voice was cold. You've turned your back on your own blood. Choosing money over family. Shame on you, Monica. My father nodded, refusing to meet my eyes. Together they walked out, following Shanice into the night. The house was quiet again, only the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. The people I had trusted most were gone, leaving behind broken words and slammed doors. But I felt no regret, only relief. After that night, I stopped opening my door to everyone. The house became quiet, and for the first time, I welcomed the silence. My lawyer handled the rest, making sure every paper was sealed tight, every account locked down. Nothing could be touched without my say. The money was safe, and more importantly, so was I. I put my energy where it mattered, on myself and Darnell. I bought a home that finally felt like mine, solid walls and peace inside them. Darnell enrolled in school without worrying about debt, his shoulders lighter than I'd ever seen. Watching him walk across that campus made me feel like I'd already won something greater than the lottery. Kiana drifted further away. She stopped calling except when she wanted something, and when she realized nothing was coming, her sweetness turned into bitterness. I heard from neighbors that she was struggling to keep up with bills, chasing quick money, but never finding it. Each time her name lit up my phone, I let it go unanswered. She had made her choice. Shanice's visits ended too. Word spread that she had lost her job and couldn't keep up her lifestyle. She blamed me, of course, telling anyone who would listen that I had turned cold, that I had forgotten family. But behind her loud words was the truth. She had gambled and lost. I didn't waste time explaining myself to anyone. People could believe what they wanted. I had lived too many years carrying others' burdens. Now I finally set them down. Some nights I sat alone in my living room, lights low, thinking about everything that had happened. Their laughter, their fake tears, their quick denials, it all replayed in my mind. But instead of pain, I felt strength. They had underestimated me, counted on me being blind, being weak. I spoke the words out loud once, just to hear them in the air. They thought I was weak, easy to poison, easy to trick. But I didn't survive decades of struggle to hand my life, and my winnings, over to snakes in my own family. The sound of my own voice was steady, and for the first time in a long while, I believed it. Do you think I did the right thing by cutting my family off and protecting what's mine? Or should I have given them another chance? I really want to know what you think, so leave me a comment. And if you want to hear more stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.